But that all happens in an instant as well. So how do you make that happen in online messaging?
Yeah, and thank you, John. That's called stopping the scroll. And so one of the things that they've done a lot of studies on is what makes people stop the scroll. And so when you're doing it in that way, and I would say this is probably, on a B2B situation on LinkedIn and potentially on these other platforms, you may actually have to flip the first two with connection and curiosity, and you've got to put that curiosity first. And the other thing is you can't make it look like an ad because our brains have been programmed to skip over the ads. And so as you're scrolling and something looks like an ad, it becomes invisible.
Welcome to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast, where we talk about all things franchising. Now, here's your host, Dr. John P. Hayes.
Hi, I'm John Hayes, Franchise Hot Seats, and I want to know, do you own your messaging? Well, Jimi Gibson is with us, and he's going to show us a thing or two that might show all of us, how to get better control of our messaging. So as we talk to people, whether we're franchisees or we're franchisors, we're communicating to get a result, a desired result. But we don't always get that, do we? So Jimmy, what's the problem? Welcome to the program.
Hi, John. Glad to be here. Yeah, I would say messaging is a big problem that we see, and hopefully we can dig into some topics today that'll help people clear that up.
Great. So let's begin. How are you going to get our attention? If I say to you, hey, I need you to coach me, Jimmy, I got to go out on stage, or I've got to get up in front of an audience and I want to capture their attention immediately. Maybe I could do some magic. Would that be helpful?
Oh, wow, magic. Yes, that is part of my background, and we'll try something now, John, and then we'll sort of deconstruct that over the course of our chat. So I think I remember reading you're in Florida, is that right?
That's right.
Whereabouts in Florida?
West Palm Beach.
West Palm Beach. Nice, nice. So are you in a home, a condo? Tell me about your neighborhood.
Yeah, I live in a nice townhouse on the golf course. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Great. Well, what I'd like for you to do is just take a walk. We're going to walk through your neighborhood, and we have no agenda. We're just kind of hanging out. It's nice weather.
Yeah.
There's probably houses that you can point out and you can say, oh, yeah, I know who lives there. And then there might be some that you walk by and you go, wow, I've just kind of never noticed that house before. I wonder what's going on. And so you kind of stop. Now, do you have a dog that you walk, or are you just kind of hanging out?
Nope, I don't have a dog, just me. I take walks through the neighborhood. It's a condo community, so there are townhouses and there are high rises, and there aren't any single family homes in the community.
Great. Well, let me get you to stop somewhere along that walk and look at a door. Have you got something in mind?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now that door, it's kind of strange. It's open and you don't see anybody around, but you said you lived in a golf community. There's a golf club in the front hallway leaning up against the door. And you're thinking, I wonder if that house is being robbed and somebody got hit with that golf club. So that's one option. Another option would be that the door's open and they're getting ready for a little party and some friends and family are coming over, and they've just sort of left the door open because they don't want to have to go answer the door. They're in the kitchen preparing some things. That's another option. Then the next option is there's a shovel in the front yard and there's dirt, holes and weird stuff, and the shovel's leaned up against a tree, and you're thinking, that's kind of weird. I mean, we have people that take care of the grounds. I don't know why somebody would have a shovel. I don't really understand that. And then the last option is, wow, the sun is just hitting that doorway. The door is open. The floor has been polished. It's kind of shining like diamonds. So you got four options there. Which one do you think is the reality? We've got the club, we've got the welcoming door open, we've got the shovel in the front yard, or we've got the floor shining like diamonds.
I think the door is open with a golf club, and somebody just left it there, maybe had to run into the house and going to grab the club and get over to the course.
Okay, great. Now, you're kind of inquisitive. We had a chat in the green room before we talked. You had a lot of great questions. So you're curious. You want to make sure nothing bad is going on. So you approach, and again, I haven't been to your community. I don't know if it's just a walk straight in, but let's pretend like there's 13 steps up to that door that you've been looking at. And you start to walk up the steps. What step do you get to before somebody calls out and goes, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think I'm halfway up.
So 13 is like 6, 7?
6 steps in, right. 6 steps up and somebody says, where are you going? Who are you? What are you doing?
Okay, that's interesting. Well, what you didn't actually know is you picked a card. And so I gave you 4 options. The first one was the golf club or a club. The second one was an open environment, warm, loving heart. The next one was a shovel or a spade in the front yard. And the last one is the floor was shining like diamonds. And then I asked you, what step did you get up to before somebody stopped you? And I gave you an option, 6 or 7. You said 6, right? So it's a little less than halfway. And so this deck has been here on my desk the whole time. Let me just go through here. Oh, that's very interesting. There's one card and one card only that's turned around. And if that were the 6 of clubs, that would be pretty incredible.
Yeah, it sure would be. I had nothing to do with that I know of.
Oh, you made all the selections. So let's talk about what's going on.
Yeah.
You want to break that down, and then we can use that in marketing messaging, and I kind of call it...
let's do.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Great. So a magician's role, and if you think about magic, it's persuasion in its purest form, right? So you're controlling attention, you're guiding perception, you're shaping belief, just like in marketing. And so when we started to chat, I asked you about where you lived. You told me where you lived. You said it was a golfing community, and we're sort of getting to know each other. And so that is a release of oxytocin. And oxytocin is that familiarity, trust chemical that activates those chemicals that communicate with the rest of our body. And that's what a magician does on stage, right? So they have to walk out on stage, grab the attention, make sure somebody doesn't yawn or go, oh my gosh, this is going to be so boring. Same thing in messaging related to any interaction, whether it be a marketing interaction, a sales interaction, anything like that. So the first thing is you want to get that connection point. So once we have that connection point, I learn a little bit more about you. I need to activate some curiosity or some imagination. And that's actually going to release dopamine. And dopamine, we hear about that a lot with social media. People think, oh, they're addicted to dopamine and social media. Actually, dopamine is the expectation of a reward. And so when you post something online, you hope somebody's going to like it or share it or comment on it. But you need that closure. And so we had this long period of discussion about the spade, the club, the heart, the diamond. Probably some of your listeners are thinking, what in the world is he talking about? This is kind of strange. Well, I've never heard this on a podcast before. And you're trying to figure out what's going on, right? But you're sort of in it. We talked about it being a magic trick. So you sort of resigned yourself to the fact that we're on this journey together. And then I pull out the deck of cards after you've made your choices. And your brain starts to go, what? No, I don't know how this is possible. And so at that point, we're talking about serotonin, which is the closure or the resolution or the conversion. And then when I pull that card out, all of a sudden that whole story makes sense. And then you go, oh my gosh, how is that possible? So that's how a magic trick works. And we need to set up our communication the same way. What people want to do is they want to talk about themselves. They want to talk about, I did this, I'm this, our service is this, our product is this, and people turn off because they're really not interested. What they're interested in is what's in it for me, right? Why should I care? And so what is the favorite thing that people want to hear? Their name. They want to talk about themselves. And so I engage you in conversation about talking about yourself. So that's the first part. Then we activate that curiosity, and then we move to conversion. And so what I ended up doing after many years of performing magic, I reverse engineered this, and I said, that's exactly what we need to do in our marketing messages. And so that's sort of the brief explanation, but we can dig in wherever you want to go with that, John. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. So what do you recommend that people do with their social media to add some magic to it, which would be, the magic would be people actually listen, watch, and engage with communications or with communicators or with thought leaders or with influencers? How do they get that done other than talking about a topic that everybody wants to hear about? But what if you're not talking about a topic that's very popular and that you're looking for that niche audience? What do you recommend?
Of course, Thrive Agency is a digital marketing agency, and one of the things that attracts me, I did start out my career in an ad agency. That's an old term that many listeners may not be familiar with, but you've probably seen on Mad Men. And so digital marketing, obviously, with the advent of the internet and all the ways that you can communicate, I think people get overwhelmed and they get lost and they don't realize how specific that targeted message can be. And so instead of putting an ad on broadcast TV, which used to be the way to do it, we can really specifically target who we want to talk to. And so let's just use, for example, a Facebook or an Instagram ad, and maybe we'll do a video. Now, when you look at that, you can actually select behaviors. You can select what people engage with. You can select where they are in the country or the world. You can select age group. You can select gender, all these different types of things, what brands they follow. If you're a broker and you're interested in connecting with somebody who may be interested in starting an online business, you can create this profile of this person. But if you're in a local community, and let's just say you have a plumbing business and you're a franchise owner of a large plumbing operation and you've bought a region or a market, you can segment that area based on zip codes, based on a radius around your home office, your service area, whatever the case may be. Now, this is the type of communication we typically see. And again, we're talking about this is how you can be invisible to everybody out there. So you might say something like, Joe's Plumbing, fast, reliable, affordable. We offer 24/7 emergency plumbing services, drain cleaning, water heater repair, and more. Call now for a free estimate. Okay, what's going to happen? There's no connection. You have not activated oxytocin. You don't feel human. There's no story. There's no emotional hook. It's generic. Nobody really feels anything reading it, right? And there's no reason to trust or care. There's no curiosity. When you talk about fast, reliable, affordable, guess what? So does 97% of everybody else say the same thing, right? The call now is vague. Why should I call now? Do I have a problem now? What's in it for me? So that's the bad way to do it. Let's talk about a good way to do it. It was 2:07 a.m. when my daughter yelled, Dad, the kitchen floor is flooding. That's the moment that changed the way I run my business, because I realized plumbing problems don't wait for business hours, and neither should we. So what is that? That activates the oxytocin. There's a story. The viewers think in their head. So you always have to think about what is the listener or the receiver of the information? What story are they making up in their head? Well, that could happen to me, right? And so then there's some sort of commitment that has been described. That's the moment that it changed the way I do my business. Now we want to activate that curiosity, right? Now, most plumbers charge after hours. We don't. In fact, we'll text you a live video of your plumber en route, so you know it's not just some random dude with a wrench. So all of a sudden, you're sort of going against what's expected. It teases that reward loop. Wait, what? It's different. And so again, we're triggering that dopamine. And now we have to bring it to a close, but we have to have permission to bring it to the close, right? So we may say something like, whether it's a burst pipe at midnight, a clogged drain at lunchtime, we show up fast, clean, and ready, because peace of mind shouldn't cost you extra, and neither should respect. So now you've opened the door for that conversion. If you need us now, or you just want to save our number for later, click below and we'll text you a plumber prep checklist so you're ready before things go sideways. Now, there's a lot of things going on with that last part. Typically, when you're in some type of home service business, you don't need them till you need them, right? But you want to make sure you're top of mind. And so they're also saying, click below and we'll text you, because if you have to transfer from a phone, which is probably where people are seeing that message because it's on the platform of Facebook or Instagram, you need to be able to not have them have to send you an email, go offline. They're probably not ready to call you, right? And so we're giving them an easy, low commitment way to learn more about us and continue to build that trust. So eventually, when the drain gets clogged or their friend's drain gets clogged, they're going to know who to call because you've had this interaction. And so I think that is the challenge, that people don't break down that messaging to the point where they understand it's a conversation. You shouldn't have this marketing hat that you're wearing and be plastic about the way that you're communicating. So yeah, does that help?
So the problem seems to be not just the content of the messaging, particularly on social media, but the fact that people are on there partly because they're bored and partly because, well, let's find some entertainment. Maybe I can be entertained. But they're not on there for the vast majority of the messages that they're going to scroll through. The magical thing has to be stop them somehow and pay attention to what I have to say, because it could, let's say, change your life, or it could make you smarter, or it could make you richer. How do you do that? How do you stop people in their tracks? Because I think that's the big enemy of all of us who are messaging on social media. We're competing with the thumb or the finger that keeps the scrolling going. And getting someone to stop takes a magic moment. And that's I understand the serotonin, the need for the dopamine, but that all happens in an instant as well. So how do you make that happen in online messaging?
Yeah, and thank you, John. That's called stopping the scroll. And so one of the things that they've done a lot of studies on is what makes people stop the scroll. And so when you're doing it in that way, and I would say this is probably, on a B2B situation on LinkedIn and potentially on these other platforms, you may actually have to flip the first two with connection and curiosity, and you've got to put that curiosity first. And the other thing is you can't make it look like an ad because our brains have been programmed to skip over the ads. And so as you're scrolling and something looks like an ad, it becomes invisible. And so if we go back to the example of the kitchen filling up with water, a stop the scroll could be this kid standing in the kitchen with water up to their knees. And you're going to stop and you're going to go, what? And now we've all seen videos like this or images like this. And what are you activating? Is that kid going to drown? I'm curious, what happened? So you've opened up something in their head to go, I need the answer to this question. And that's how you should be thinking. So I would say when you start to, and I know you probably have a lot of viewers and different stakeholders as far as what they're trying to do on social media, but if you can just think through, can you start a conversation in a story that needs a conclusion? Because we're hardwired to follow stories. And the other thing that you have to do is you can't start the story at the beginning. You can't say, well, I tucked my daughter into bed and she wanted to go downstairs for a cup of water. And when she turned on the sink started to overflow, like you've already lost them. You have to start the engagement with your audience at the height of the action, because that's where the most intense thing is happening. And that needs the answer to, how did this start? What are they going to do about it? And so if you just remember that little part of it, I think that is the key to stopping the scroll. And, once you start to dissect all of this, once you go through your social feeds, and then you also have to understand what is the audience of a social feed. I would say Facebook is friends, family, and connecting and fun. And so if your message is outside of that, then you're not going to be relevant. LinkedIn is all business. Let's get to it. It's about making money. It's about getting more leads. It's all those types of things. And then Instagram obviously is a very visual medium. And so you can't have small text and boring things. Reels are very popular. Algorithms change, daily, if not weekly, or weekly, if not daily. And you just have to try different things and figure out what is the right message for your brand. And I would say the other thing is be you, be your personality. If you're funny, be funny. If you're serious, be serious, and you'll still capture the audience that you want, because I see a lot of people trying to be fake and trying to be that influencer like you recommended. And then you end up with a bunch of customers that you don't want, you don't like working with. And so, yeah, those are some top tips, I would say. And it does take a different eyeball and some practice.
Mm-hmm. So in my case, for example, I do a podcast. I've been doing this for a long time. It's a guy with a lot of white hair and a beard. He's an older guy, and he knows a lot about franchising. But it's got to be, what is it about the image that has to stop the scroll? You can't always you could, I guess, if with every podcast you wanted to create a kid with water up to their waist in the kitchen, okay, maybe that's the scene or scenes like that will stop the scroll. But if you're conveying information about franchising that will be helpful to people, particularly if they're going to buy one or if they're thinking about starting one, is it necessary to create the child in the kitchen with water up to their waist? Is it necessary to create that type of image or scene that's the showstopper, the scroll stopper? Or is there a chance that this is just somebody who provides great information that I need to have, and he doesn't need to be standing in a pool of water in the kitchen?
Yeah, great point. And you're exactly right. And you have a particular audience that's interested in listening. If I ask you who is the ideal audience for the information that you're putting out, you could probably give me 2 or 3 very specific people. It could be a broker, it could be a franchisor, it could be a franchisee, and they are also wondering what's in it for me to listen to a 30, 45-minute podcast. Are there snippets or snackable content that I could look at? The other thing that you have to understand, again, more than 50%, pushing 60% of people are consuming social media on their, or any kind of content on their phone. They're typically not listening to it with the sound on. And so subtitles need to be there. They need to be big enough to read on a device. If you have a cut of this interview that we're doing and there's a little sound bite, lead with that. And as you're scrolling, if you are programmed to be seeking information about something, there's a number of cues, right? So you have a header at the top of your social platform. There might be, if we look at a vertical box, 16 by 9 or 9 by 16 vertical, there could be some text above that before the video is in the middle, and then something at the bottom. And you have to really cut to the chase about who I am, what I'm doing. And so some stationary text that basically says, are you interested in, so again, those three audiences. You might have three snippets of a video that address all those different topics, but one snippet is specifically for somebody interested in purchasing a franchise. And so the top text could say something very quickly, are you looking to be in business for yourself? Have a little snippet of the information, and then some call to action at the end to send them for more information or a link to the podcast on YouTube or whatever platform they listen to or watch videos on. And what that's going to do is that's going to have someone look at that and go, is this for me? Yes or no? And it has to be in 3 seconds or less. And I would say even less than that. And so then you're just qualifying, and I think we also get in the habit of trying to be clever instead of clear, and clear always wins over clever. And so you got to boil it down to the fewest number of words, the quickest way to get their attention.
So why are people scrolling? Other than what I said before, they're bored and it's something to do and it's what everybody else does. You scroll to find something, but do we really know what we want to find? And when we see it, would we know that we found it? Because, people are doing this mindlessly, and yet are they using it? Social media, reels particularly, are these mostly for passing the boredom and entertainment? Or what percentage of people are really on there to say, I've got to go get this message about franchising because I want to franchise my business and I know this guy can help me, as opposed to I need something to do for 5 minutes while I'm waiting for the fast food to arrive, and scrolling on Instagram is as good as anything else.
Yeah. So that's the meaning of life question. Why are we addicted to social media? We're all multi-dimensional, and we all receive thousands and thousands and thousands of messages. And we all have a subtext or an agenda that we're interested in. And that subtext could be, I just need to unwind and I want to be entertained. You're absolutely right. But there may be some nagging thing in your life that you talked about, a business owner wanting to franchise their business. That person has a profile on social media. Big data, whether you like it or not, is capturing all the information, especially if you're logged into a various platform. And so you have to look at it as an ecosystem of all the different ways in which you can reach the person that you want and be respectful of the agendas that they have. And so there are techniques, John, where you can program and we'll just use Facebook, for example. You can do it on other platforms. You can have a video that lasts 10 seconds. And if that person watches half of that 10 seconds, it puts that person in a list, an invisible list. And then you can do what's called retargeting. And then you can serve up a different video for all the people that watched at least 5 seconds of your 10-second video. And then you can have them watch a 30 or 45-second video. And then you can retarget the people that watched a certain portion of that 30 to 45. And so we talk about funnels, and the biggest message at the top is the mouth of the funnel. And then as that funnel goes down, out from the bottom spits a customer for whoever is trying to attract a particular type of audience. And it's basically permission-based, because when you're on social media, it's interruption-based, right? And so you have to be very creative and you have to be very tenacious about how you engage with that platform. But there are ways to put people into a deeper level of conversation. You can send them to your website. There are ways that you can retarget them while they're online, whether it be a banner ad, whether it be a PPC campaign. If they're searching for something in particular, then you would show up. And so you start to create this profile of behavior. And if your business is seasonal, and let's say this person who wants to franchise their business is some seasonal lawn care, there are certain times where their business is bigger. And so you might not want to target them during the busiest times because their brain is just on getting the work done. But perhaps you know that they do their planning around the first of the year or the end of the year. And now they're in that thinking mode of, yes, I want to be entertained, but I have this thing in the back of my head that says I need to be planning, and I've put off franchising this thing for the last 5 years, and enough's enough. Now you can tailor your message at the right time in the right place and show up in front of that person because of all of the the activity that they've already done online. So, I would say there's many, many techniques. It would probably take us multiple hours to go through all that. Yeah. But I would say the biggest point that people miss is email is not dead, and that is your direct ability to communicate with somebody. And your goal should be to get their email address, because now you're not reliant on the platforms, you're not reliant on an ad budget, you're not reliant on an algorithm, and now you can communicate with that person however and whenever you want. So when we go back to that example, I said, text me to get the plumber prep list checklist. Now I have permission and I have a direct channel to communicate with them by text. And then we sort, maybe in that document, there's a way that they can take the next step and then the next step and then the next step. So
what's more important, getting the email or getting permission to text?
I would say it depends on, your audience. If it's an older demographic, they're comfortable with email. A younger demographic prefers we call it impersonal, but it's the way they communicate. It could be through DMs, it can be through instant messaging, interactions with various platforms. It could be, I would say, text is the easiest way, especially if they're on a mobile device.
So this has all been interesting. We're all interested in how to make our communications more effective. And so we want to know, when I speak or when I perform or when I appear, what is it that I can do that will get people to do what I want them to do, which may not be wanting them to do anything other than listen to you and learn knowledge, which, because I'm a teacher, that's my case. So where can I go to magic school that will give me that power, Jimmy, that will stop people in their tracks when they see me across their scroll and they're going to pause to get my message?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. That's the platform. I'm producing a video a day, Monday through Friday this year. I should have thought about that before I did the math. That's like 261 videos.
Yeah.
So I'm giving tips on my LinkedIn that you can just passively watch. They're short. If you string them all together, you'll get some lessons. If you want to take the next step, go ahead and connect with me, DM me, and I will send you a messaging framework that will get you started.
Jimmy, that was great information. I'm going to do my best to use it. And now we're going to disappear magically again, but we'll be back with more important messages. I surely will, and you too, on our respective areas of education. And I appreciate the time you spent with me.
Great. Thanks, John. It was fun.
Thanks for tuning in to the Franchise Hot Seat Podcast with Dr. John P. Hayes. Tune in next time for more conversation around all things franchising.